G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, well, we've got the Real 2 from Real ACC, and honestly, I'm just going to flash some pictures on the screen. Look at this thing. Like, I don't know if that's extremely ugly, or if it's kind of a bit different and I like it or I hate it. I actually don't know how I feel about the look of this drone, so I'm a little bit perplexed. But what this is the part 1 review of the Real 2. What we're going to be doing, it's a 5-inch racer. We're going to be sticking it on the bench, break it down, having a look at how it comes, because it does look like a plug and play pretty decent, like F4 quadcopter that hopefully we can take out and rip around. But overall, that shape, I mean, that's why I wanted to review it, because I've never seen something like that. And I don't know how I feel about this battery compartment on the bottom. Is that just going to snap off? I'm not too sure. Anyway, we're going to be sticking it on the bench, breaking down, having a look, and then in the part 2 video, we'll be taking it out to the field, ripping it around and seeing just how this strange thing glows. I don't know if it's ugly or not. Anyway, let's waste no time, stick it on the bench, and get started with this review. Alrighty, so here it is on the bench. Here's the Real 2, and I still can't get over how this looks. You know, it doesn't, I guess I'm shocked, because I've seen a lot of drones in the past, and I kind of like this thing, but this part on the back is killing me. So as an overview, what this is a full 5-inch racer. It's got some pretty cool stuff in here. It's got BioHeli 32-bit ESCs on the arm, so some pretty cool stuff. Then we've got some, you know, 2205 motors, all that stuff we're going to be going through in a moment. If we weigh the whole thing, it's coming in at about 383 grams, so about as heavy as the Chameleon. It's a bite and fly 5-inch racer, and its looks are what attracted to me. It's split level, so we should be getting some cleaner air in the back. We'll talk about this all a little bit more into the design, but honestly, I don't know what's going on the bottom here. Let's just get this out of the way. This is where your battery's meant to go in this part, and I am telling you, this thing is going to get smashed off straight away. So the first thing I'm going to do, so I can continue and sort of focus, because you know, some things are just like, I'm getting triggered off looking at this thing. It is frustrating me that much. Let's take this bottom part off. Alrighty, that's a bit better. That's much more quadcopter looking like, and I gotta say, it looks pretty cool like this. Like this, I'm a really big fan. So with that bit aside, let's jump in, have a look at the components, and go through the design, the quality, the pros and cons, all that sort of stuff. What I like, what I think they can change, because honestly, I do think there's some things in here, like it's looking pretty strong and split level with an F4. It does do some things right. So let's jump in, start off the review, and have a look at the components. Now, the first thing I usually do on these bind and flies is I take the props off, and props off for the boys. What we've got here, don't expect no generic props, even though this might seem like a pretty budget racer. It's like $180 or something like that. I'll link it down below, but this actually has some of the Gem Fan whiskey props, and I don't know if they've been chosen. Look, they have a very strange little tip on the end. I don't know if that's been chosen because of the color or because they like the flight performance. So we're going to have to see. Usually I switch the props out, but I have heard a bit of hype about these ones, so we'll test it out like this, and then also put some cyclones on it and stuff like that. But at least you're getting some pretty cool props, and you do get a spare set as well that comes with it. So we'll put those to the side. I'm going to take them all off actually, because it does make the review a lot easier. It does have 2 different direction motor nuts, so you've got your clockwise and anti-clockwise, which honestly I'm not a fan of. I wish they just all went one way, but you can't really be too choosy when you look at the price. Alrighty, so the next component we should sort of jump in and have a look, and this is what attracted me to it, was the frame itself. So it is a very unique looking quadcopter. It's got a split level design. It's using a lot of aluminium, a lot of strange standoffs in some strange places, and what that means is by having the split level design, you can see the front 2 arms, they're one piece, and then the back 2 are another piece up here. And what that's going to allow in some fast forward flight, these, let's see if we can put it on a bit of an angle, the air coming off these discs of the props is not going to be affecting, it's not going to be causing any turbulence for these back ones up here. So I'm a big fan of the split level frames, and this one, it's kind of doing it on a knot. I think that's a good amount. You know, the America did it a little bit. I've had some extreme examples where the splits have been a lot higher, and I think overall it just offers for some nicer flight characteristics. Now the frame itself, it might look a little bit like a stretch X, but it's actually just a true X, so it's the same direction from motor to motor no matter which way you go. And you do have these big hard aluminium parts in the middle right here, so I think that's going to offer you some good protection when you're sort of smashing into the ground. Should be very robust in the sort of angle that this thing has, so it's going to be protecting our components pretty well. That's what we should jump in next, and we're going to zoom in and we're going to have a look at these bits, and we'll move in and have a look at the internals. Okie dokie, so the motors here, you can see got a little motor protector on the outside, and honestly I don't like that. I find those a little bit frustrating because it makes it hard when you're trying to undo the props and all that sort of stuff. It's hard to get a bit of purchase on there. But what we have, these look like a copy of the Raystar motors. I've never heard of this brand before, whatever they are, Racing Edition, the DX22s, but they're 2205s, 2300 kV kV, and I'm not expecting too much. I do prefer on the, I guess, the cheaper models, and I do think that's what this is. It is a budget model. I do wish we had a 2600 kV there, because I think that would go a little bit better, but time will tell. You know, I don't want to judge it too soon. I'm just going to see how they go, but at the moment I'd say they're probably going to be about average. Then moving towards the middle, this is where something is a little bit different. So you can see on the back here, we're going to have to flip it over to see the other ESCs, but we don't have a 4-in-1 ESC, which is becoming very, very popular. Instead, we've got an ESC on the arms, and that they all have their pros and cons. They get a bit of extra cooling here, and if you've got the space, why not put them on the arm? It's not going to cause too much difference, but they can get hit by the props. The back ones are not going to get hit by the props, of course, but the special thing about this one, they are BOHeli 32, so not that BOHeli S, this is like the next sort of, I guess, hardware design in there, so that's pretty cool. It's rocking D-Shot 1200 or D-Shot 1200, however you want to say it, so that part is pretty cool. Alrighty, so now before we talk about the FPV side of things, so we've got our camera out, all that sort of stuff, let's talk about the actual flight things that affect its flight, then we'll jump over and have a look at the FPV. So I'm going to flash some pictures on the screen. So on the bottom, look, is maybe a bit of a relic from the past. We've actually just got a standard PDB on the bottom. It can take it to a 2 to a 4S LiPo, so nothing special there. On the top, that's where we've got our F4 omnibus, so that's pretty cool. Pretty good flight control. It's got Betaflight OSD, all that sort of jazz, so you shouldn't be having too many problems when you're flying around. Pretty standard stuff in the industry that we're using it right here. Then moving forward on the top, this is where we're going to look at our FPV section, and that is housed in this totally, I guess, part above here, because there's a carbon plate through the middle, and then we've got our FPV part on the top. And I'd say if you were going to build this frame itself, luckily it comes pre-built, because it might be a little bit frustrating if you had to put all this together. It looks really cool, but I'd say repairs might be a little bit frustrating, especially with the VTX side of things. But the FPV side of things, look, I have some issues straight away. There's some things I would definitely like to fix on here, and for a budget build, these parts, even though it's budget, they should still get these things right. So you get this little antenna here. Time will tell if that's any good. It looks pretty generic, so we'll just put that to the side, and I've taken it off before because these little screws to go in there, because I've had to do that for a reason. And if you're thinking of running a GoPro or something on here, let me get my GoPro, hang on. So here's my GoPro. Let's say I'm going to sit that on here. How am I meant to mount my GoPro with this big stupid antenna in the top? That's one of the best things about 5-inch racers, is that we can put a GoPro on here, but this thing, it's just definitely in the way. So I am going to be moving this. As much, it's very, very annoying, so I'm going to be putting that. Hopefully I'm going to try and run it out the back. Now another thing that's pretty annoying about this VTX, they've put my, let's say you don't have a GoPro and you're totally fine with that. Well, you might want to change your channel on your VTX that I've got right here. Now this is just like a 40 channel. It can either be a 20 milliwatt or a 200 milliwatt, your sort of standard pretty stuff. But how am I meant to change that channel? Because they've put this top plate in around the wrong way, and the button to actually change it is underneath here. So if I wanted to keep it like this, I'm going to have to flip that over. So that part's annoying as well. You're going to have to take it all apart just to try and switch this little plate around. So that part's frustrating. Strike number 2. And then on the front, nothing standard. We've just got like a HS1177 style camera. It's a 2.8 lens. I'd probably prefer a 2.3, but look, I learned to fly in 2.8. So no biggie right there when it comes to the FPV lens. I think that's fine. The camera I'm not too concerned about. And you do get a fair bit of protection as well. Look, you've got some different standoffs if you're getting unlucky. So I actually think this frame's done a pretty good job at protecting the camera. Now some of the little extra components around here, I'll flash some pictures on the screen if it's not in focus. You've also got like little multicolored LEDs on the back. You've got a buzzer, which is great. Underneath, it is going to be it's going to be painful if you break your little Velcro strap or something like that. You're not going to like that part. And then we've got our little XT60 in the back like this. I'm not a fan when they're hard soldered into the board. I much prefer if they come out on some little leads, because otherwise if you jettison your battery, this thing, I'm telling you what's going to happen right now. It's just going to snap a bit of this plastic off, and then your XT60 is ruined. So that part's a little bit of a shame as well. Alrighty, so moving on, let's talk about the actual design of the thing. And when I talk about the design, I mean the design of the frame, and also what choice components have they put in here, and how do they sort of all go together. So in terms of the frame, I kind of like it. I like the split level. I think it's going to be pretty tough. It's going to protect your components pretty well. There are some small design things which just seem like massive oversights, like the antenna or like this FPV plate, all that sort of jazz. And this thing, I'd throw that in the bin, or use that for something else, because there's no way that I'm going to be putting on here. That's just asking to break off, and it's probably going to cause more damage to the rest of your quad. It's going to catch on some stuff, so that part is just absolute rubbish. In terms of the components, I like the flight controller. 32-bit ESCs is fantastic. I guess the VTX is well, I don't know what you can say too there. I don't think it's going to affect flight performance too much, but it is annoying how it comes up through the middle, so pretty generic. And you've also got, I'm going to guess here, pretty generic motors as well. So time will tell when we take those out and rip it around. Now in terms of the quality of the thing, I would probably give the solder joints and all that sort of stuff. I'll see if I can put some pictures on the screen. Maybe like a 6 out of 10. It's definitely not the best I've seen. It's not terrible, but it's also not great. But it is just a cheap quad, remember. The quality of the components, I guess, time will tell on these motors, like I keep mentioning, in the VTX and all that sort of stuff. The omnibus and the camera, you know, it's okay. So in the terms of the stiffness of the frame, I'd say the quality of the carbon is probably about the same at a 6 out of 10. So it's going to be interesting. I think the design is right there for the strength, but time will tell how it goes in terms of how it holds up in its crashes. Alrighty, so with all that said and done, let's have a look at the pros and the cons. Let's get the pros out of the way first. The things I like the frame design, I like the protection of the camera, I like the split level, I like the flight controller, I don't mind. I guess I'm pretty impartial to the camera that they've got in here. And I also like that we're rocking 32-bit ESCs, and for the price. I think that part's pretty cool. Oh, and the props, I can't forget those as well. They actually included some like legit gem fan props, so that's pretty cool. And on top of that, it looks pretty rad, so I really do like the look of it. The cons, on the other hand, you know, the generic motors, we'll have to see how they go. I can't stand how they've put this stupid part in backwards and they've got this, you know, right in the middle where I want to attach my GoPro. That's going to drive me nuts, so I'm definitely going to have to change that. And then on the bottom, you have this other thing, you know, I'm sure you know how I feel about that. That part, I don't like that XT60 connector, so in by no means is this thing perfect, absolutely not. I really think you're going to have to do a few mods, I guess. I would have to do a few mods if this was going to be my quadcopter. I'm going to run, you know, the XT60 out the back, all that sort of stuff if this was going to be my main flyer. So we're taking that all into account, I guess, the price. Like, it is a budget racer, so you're sort of getting what you pay for in this respect. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's the best, but for like the 180 bucks or 170, whatever it is, you know, I think for the money, you can't really complain too much. Anyway, so that was it, sort of on the bench, having a look at its components, the pros and cons, all that sort of stuff. I am excited to take it out, rip it around, especially with the split level function. If these motors can handle it, I think it should absolutely rip, and I'm hoping it results in a really, really smooth flight experience. It's not too bad after you do a few mods for a great price. Alrighty, so there it is. There's my part 1 review of the Real 2. That's such a mouthful to say. That took me like 3 takes. And, you know, overall, I think it's pretty interesting. I do like the look of it. I think, you know, I just can't get over. I'm a big fan of that. Time will tell how it holds up. I am a fan of the split level system, so that should be pretty good when it's cutting through the air. Get rid of that other rubbish that was hanging on underneath. That's just that's just useless, you know, so get rid of that. I'm not a fan of that part, and I'm not too sure how I'm going to go about mounting that VTX, because I do want to show you guys some HD footage. So that part seems like a massive oversight, but time will tell, so definitely stick around for the part 2 video, because that's where we're going to take it out to the field, rip it around. I'll try and show you guys some HD footage if we can get that thing sorted. We'll hit it with Speed Gun Sally, Crash Test Cal, see what Grumpy Trev thinks about it, and, you know, find out, is this going to be a good buy for you, or is it just going to be goodbye? Anyway, hope you guys like that. Definitely subscribe for more FPV related content, or drop your comments down below. You know, what do you think about the looks of it? Are you a fan? How do you think it's going to go? And as always, happy flying! Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page, because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying!